Back in 2017, I got my first pair of AirPods. The originals, about 6 months after they came out. I was a junior in high school, and I made a review on them back about how me, being, as I called myself, an audiophile, loving AirPods. And that was one of the original videos that got at least some views on this channel, and a lot has changed since then. I remember back then, a lot of the earlier reviews of the AirPods were essentially pointing out how stupid they looked, how they basically looked like earpods out the wires, and they were goofy and big, and they sounded just like earpods, which really wasn't true. And it seemed at the time that maybe they just weren't going to catch on. I had this memory, and frankly, I'm not completely sure if this was just in my head, but I remember running one day when I had the AirPods and feeling that some girls were snickering at me. That was how I perceived it, and I assumed because they thought that I looked so silly with the AirPods. Fast forward to today, and AirPods are basically everywhere. Here in the United States, you can't really go anywhere without seeing people having them. And Apple sells all different tiers of them. You have all different generations of both the standard AirPods and the AirPod Pros at various different price points. So when the AirPods Pro 3 got announced, as someone who has been using both the original AirPods, then the AirPods 2, then the AirPods Pro, then the AirPods Pro 2, I of course wanted to give them a shot and see what they were really like. I wanted to see if maybe they were worth the upgrade from the Pro 2. That was the big question for me. It had been 3 years since the Pro 2s have come out, and as someone who loves the Pro 2s, I wanted to see if there was actually something meaningfully better about these new AirPods Pro 3. And what I can tell you right off the bat is these do fit very differently than the Pro 2s. For me, I don't know if this is really the case for most people, but I found the AirPod Pro 2s very comfortable, but not really super sealed in my ear, even at different sizes of ear cups that I would try. I could never really get them to fully stick in my ear, to the point where on more than a few occasions they have fallen out of my ears. I can think of times where I was on flights, for example, and fell asleep and woke up and one of the AirPods was on the ground. And thankfully I didn't lose them, but as you can imagine, not an ideal situation to be in. These Pro 3s, despite looking almost identical, fit very differently. My feeling is they kind of twist into your ear and go significantly deeper in, forming a tighter seal essentially, and also changing the way that they sound. So it's kind of like if you wear earplugs. I know most of you probably tried earplugs at some point to sleep or for other reasons. It feels almost like that, not quite so intense as earplugs, but there's something kind of similar, possibly because of the foam, at least foam interior ear cups being involved here. Overall, when I first tried these, I did not think they felt as comfortable at first. That was immediately kind of a complaint that I had. But I did get used to them, and like I said, I feel that overall this is a better design. It's going to fit in better in people's ears. They also have more sizes of ear cups, as you probably heard. But I think that also does lead to how they sound different. So just to kind of let the cat out of the bag, if you were expecting these to be a major sound improvement over the Pro 2s, you will be sorely disappointed. They don't really sound that much better. With that said, I did do a lot of testing with them, A/B testing them with the Pro 2s, and my impression was that there is certain sound differences that you will notice. One of the biggest ones that I was able to perceive is that the imaging is better on these. So what I mean by that is that with the Pro 3s, I feel like you can kind of hear space in the music better. Like you can kind of differentiate different areas in the sound where you're hearing different instruments and vocals. And to be clear, I'm not talking about the Apple spatial audio or anything like that. I just mean using them in their standard configuration. And that's nice. I mean, that's something that I tend to perceive with better headphones, is when they have better imaging. Also the bass. You may have heard from other reviews, sometimes a bit exaggerated, that the bass is heavier on these, the bass is more emphasized. And that is true, but I would not say it's negative in any sense. I think the improved bass, as I would call it here, is nice. And what I also noticed finally is that at least with vocals and the music that I listened to, the vocals came through a little bit clearer. To be completely honest with you, there were times I was doing this test with the Pro 2s and the Pro 3s, and a couple times I did almost forget which one was which, if that tells you anything about the sound difference, it's not huge, but again, they do sound better, maybe like 10% better. 15, maybe 20%, 10 to 20% better. Not huge, but you will notice it if you're really looking for it. Where you do really notice a big difference, besides that fit that we described earlier, is the noise canceling. I think a lot of people, myself included, found the noise canceling on the Pro 2s to be already really good. I mean, I brought it on a few flights that I went on over the last few years, and I remember being pretty impressed, especially compared to the original Pros, and then, well, compared to the AirPods, which had no noise canceling, how good they were at blocking out that engine noise, that low rumble, that noise that kind of makes me feel nauseous, frankly. I found the Pro 2s were pretty good at basically eliminating it. However, there was always a sense that I could still hear it a little bit, especially if I wasn't listening to loud music. I could still kind of hear it, and I did kind of wish it was at least a little bit better in that area. The Pro 3s, to be clear, I haven't taken them on a flight yet, but I'm pretty sure they would be better in this area. Just using them here in my room, I immediately noticed that there is a significant reduction in sound compared to the Pro 2s. Probably something to do with that seal that we talked about earlier, going deeper into your ears. But I think also the noise canceling here is just better. I think that this is something where you are going to immediately notice the difference, and I imagine on a flight it's going to make a really huge difference if you felt that the Pro 2s weren't good enough in that area. And I'd love to try them on a flight sometime and see for myself. And with all that said, it does kind of raise the question, so with everything that we've gone over, are these worth getting if you have the Pro 2s? And I think the answer is a bit complicated. I think on one hand, if you felt that the Pro 2 sound was good, but you wish it was just a little bit better, but you also had realistic expectations about how much better they could be, I think the Pro 3s are better in that sense and possibly worth upgrading for that reason. Though I think a better reason perhaps to upgrade would be if you found the Pro 2s did not fit that well in your ears. I think that these definitely will. If that is the case, I think that's almost a guarantee. So if that was an issue where the Pro 2s were falling out of your ears like they did for me sometimes and you weren't happy about that, Pro 3s are definitely worth the upgrade. And then back to what we were just talking about with that whole noise canceling situation. If you felt the noise canceling on the Pro 2s was not good enough, these are definitely going to be a worthy upgrade. I think a lot of what's important here, at least for someone like me, is just basically to have realistic expectations about just the kind of sound quality you're going to get here. It's something where, like we talked about, it's still AirPods. I've had the opportunity in the past few years to test some really high-end headphones, listening setups costing over $1,000, listening to lossless audio files, and that has to a degree spoiled me, I admit. That's not what you're going to get here. And I do also wish that they would let you listen to lossless audio with these. I don't know how much of a difference it would make in the sound quality of these headphones, but I know that it's at least possible to do that with the Vision Pros. So that would be one nice thing to see. But again, just kind of remember that you're getting consumer-grade headphones here. They are high-quality consumer-grade headphones, but they will not compete with professional-level headphones. If we're now talking about the actual price difference between the Pro 2s and the Pro 3s for someone who doesn't have either of them, currently on Amazon, we're seeing a $50 price difference between both models. So that's something where the Pro 2s are $199 and the Pro 3s are $249. I would say if you don't have either, definitely get the Pro 3s. They're better in the ways that I described. Slightly better sound quality, way better fit, and way better noise canceling. With that said, though, if you do feel that you really don't want to spend the extra money, I'm sure you'll be happy with the Pro 2s as well. They're still great headphones, just not quite as great as the Pro 3s. And with that said, that really is everything I have to say about these headphones, and I feel that, again, they're certainly a worthy upgrade from the Pro 2s. I do sometimes wish they were a little bit better, but again, I try to remind myself that you can't compare them to audiophile-grade headphones. If you do decide to buy the Pro 3s, or the Pro 2s for that matter, we do have Amazon affiliate links in the description. If you use those links, you will be able to support the channel at no extra cost. But with that said, I'm Christian from Ericsson Films, and thank you for watching.